Have you ever wanted to be the kind of person who just can't be broken? The kind who doesn't flinch at criticism, rejection, loss, betrayal? You ever fantasized about the day you'd finally stop feeling that quiet, suffocating pain, that gnawing ache that eats you alive while you smile like everything's fine? Maybe you're exhausted from always trying to please, tired of holding up that image, that illusion of being strong, when all you really wanted was just a moment to rest, to not be the unshakable, the untouchable for once. But listen, here's what nobody's had the guts to tell you. As long as you're trying to avoid pain, it owns you. As long as you numb yourself, hide behind silence, you're just a puppet, tugged around by every word that stings, every act that lets you down, every silence that rips you apart from the inside. And no, that's not weakness, that's just being human. The difference? Some are just better liars than others. Carl Jung, one of the deepest minds to ever explore the soul. He said, "We are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to become." That's the turning point. It's not about becoming cold, not about building armor and calling it strength. It's not about indifference, it's about integration. It's about dragging your pain into the light. Because real strength isn't the absence of pain. It's bleeding and knowing exactly who you are anyway. And if you're still here, it's not a coincidence. This is for you. You who's done tearing yourself apart to keep it all together. You who feels like everyone else somehow has power over you. That invisible grip, and you just can't figure out why. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to stay this way, but you've got to face something first. And yeah, it might hurt, but maybe, for the first time, that pain might actually set you free. You think what hurts you is out there, in what they said, in how they left, in what they did, but here's the raw, unfiltered truth. None of that has the power to destroy you. Unless there's already a wound wide open inside. What hurts isn't what they did, it's what it activates. It's the story you tell yourself about it. It's the old scar that never healed. It's the emptiness you covered up. With pride, with performance, with the desperate need to seem fine. Jung showed us pain from the outside world. It's just a mirror, a reflection of what's been hiding in your inner world. That's why one person can walk through hell with their head high, while another breaks from a single word. It's not the event, it's the place it strikes, and here's where it gets uncomfortable. You still suffer, because you still think you can control how the world treats you. You're still trying to be good enough, smart enough, strong enough, understanding enough, as if checking all those boxes means no one can ever hurt you. But that's the trap. Control is an illusion, and as long as you cling to it, you're living in chains. You feel it, don't you? That constant tension, trying to predict the unpredictable, trying to outrun the inevitable. You want to stop suffering? Then stop protecting yourself from it. What you need is not more control. You need awareness, clarity, presence. As long as you keep believing that those people, the ones who let you down, need to change for you to stop hurting, you're just chaining yourself to their actions. That's not freedom. That's enslavement. Freedom begins the moment you understand. Nothing out there has power unless it finds an echo inside. And that's what we're going into next. One level deeper, where the transformation starts, the real transformation. If this speaks to you, then yeah, subscribe. You know why you're here. You're not just watching, you're waking up. Now listen closely. The biggest lie you've ever been fed is that you're in control. Wake up. You're not while you're still living on autopilot, reacting without even knowing why. Feeling things and not knowing where they come from. Making choices only to sabotage them later. Carl Jung spelled it out. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that's you. right now. That pain you carry, the rage that suddenly detonates, that sadness. You know, the one that creeps in uninvited. None of it's random. They're messages, whispers from the forgotten corners of your soul, echoes of what you've buried, the pieces you didn't want to face. Jung called it the unconscious, and it's not just fog. It's alive, it's a force, it's a labyrinth of memory, trauma, desire, and fear. And you've refused to face it, so it acts without you. It decides what you feel, it moves you, like a hand behind the curtain. You wonder why certain words can shatter you, while others walk away untouched. Because those words hit pressure points, wounds you never closed, wounds you never faced. You didn't heal, you just shoved it all under the psychological rug. And now you keep tripping over the mess. Jung said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." So what have you been doing? Judging yourself, repressing yourself, silencing yourself. As if shame ever solved anything. Here's the truth. The unconscious doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It adapts. It finds darker, more destructive ways to show up. In the relationships you know are wrong but still chase. In patterns of self-sabotage you can't escape. In fear and anxiety. That show up right when life finally starts to go well. This isn't bad luck. It's your unconscious screaming, trying to shake you awake. But you keep sleeping. You want to be someone who doesn't break anymore? Then stop running from what's inside. Because if you don't know your own unconscious, you're not free. You're not whole. You're just a puppet. And the more you try to guard yourself from pain out there, the more exposed you are to the pain in here. But there's a way out. And no, it's not through defense. It's through integration, wholeness, awareness, because being untouchable isn't about resistance. It's not about building stronger walls. It's about digging deeper, knowing yourself, owning what you find, and that's where we go next. What does it really mean to be someone who can't be shaken? Here's a hint. That kind of power doesn't come from armor. It comes from acceptance. Let's keep going. Most people think the only way not to get hurt is to shut down, close off, lock the doors, build walls, wear a mask, put on the armor, and then they say, "I don't care anymore. I'm over it. I couldn't care less." But inside, they're still bleeding. They say, "Nothing gets to me." But inside, they're bleeding, quietly. They corrode in silence. Because the problem was never feeling. The real problem is not knowing what you're feeling, or why. And that confusion, it only exists in those who don't yet know themselves. Carl Jung was exact when he said, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but when you touch a human soul, be just another human soul." And that human soul inside you, the one you keep hiding beneath that strong, invulnerable, controlled persona, is screaming to be seen. Emotional strength has nothing to do with being cold. It's not about acting like pain doesn't exist. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's not about pretending you don't care. True emotional strength is about integration. It's about acceptance. It's about finally dragging into the light everything you've buried in the dark. You don't become untouchable by putting up walls. You become untouchable when you realize this. Nothing can harm what you've already embraced within. When you integrate your shadow, your fears, your flaws, your shame, your insecurities, you stop reacting to everything. You begin to observe. You begin to choose. You stop being a puppet of emotion. That is freedom. Jung called this process individuation, becoming who you truly are. Not what society expects, not what your family wanted, not the mask you wore to survive, but the real you. The one born from the collision of light and shadow, of ego and unconscious. He said, Individuation is not a process of perfection, but of integration. You don't need to become a better person. You need to become a whole one. Here's the secret no one tells you. The more you run from pain, the more it hunts you. The more you try not to be affected, the more fragile you become. But when you face your wounds, when you stop hiding from yourself, when you say, "This is who I am," both noble and broken, then nothing outside can dismantle you. But this path, it demands one thing above all: courage. The courage to look within, to remove the mask, to feel. Because inside pain lies the key to transformation. And that's where we're going next. You were taught to hate pain. Since you were small, you learned suffering is weakness. Crying is a waste of time. Feeling too deeply makes you soft. So you ran, you avoided, you denied. But suffering is a shadow. The more you flee it, the longer it chases you. And then it morphs. It changes shape. Suddenly you feel anxiety or random anger, apathy, boredom, self-destruction. You sabotage things and you don't even know why. But ignored pain doesn't vanish. It just digs tunnels inside you and waits. Until one day when everything seemed fine, everything collapses. Jung saw pain differently. He believed pain is not your enemy, it's your messenger. It's the voice of the unconscious. It's the language of the self. Your whole self calling out for attention. He once said, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she appears, don't push her away. Invite her in. Offer her a seat. Listen to what she has to say." But what do? You silence yourself. You stay busy. You scroll. You numb. You run from the very thing trying to set you free. But ask yourself, what is this pain really trying to say? Here's the truth. Suffering hurts so much because you are still at war with yourself. One part of you wants to grow. The other part wants everything to stay the same. Something within you cries out for transformation, but your ego, obsessed with control, does everything it can to shut it down. In the upcoming chapter, we'll look at how surrendering to suffering rather than resisting it becomes the path to inner power. We'll explore why Jung believed that your deepest wounds might just be the doorway to your greatest strength. And if you're still here, if this resonates, subscribe to the channel, because you're not just watching, you're changing. And it is in this friction between who you are and who you're becoming that pain is born. Because change hurts, growth hurts. Letting go of old beliefs hurts. Cutting toxic ties hurts. Allowing what no longer serves you to die feels like a funeral. It is a funeral, a mourning of the self, an internal death and rebirth. But here's the paradox. It is in that very ruin, where everything familiar collapses, where your certainties turn to dust, that something sacred finally has room to emerge. Because when pain strips you of all illusion, when suffering brings you to your knees, when everything falls apart, you finally meet the one person you've been avoiding your whole life, yourself, without the mask, without the script, without the performance. And it's at that exact point where suffering becomes sacred, because it opens the gate to the only thing that can truly set you free. Jung understood this. To him, suffering wasn't a malfunction. It wasn't a failure of the system. It was the system working. Pain wasn't the end of the road. It was the beginning of the journey toward individuation. But most people never make it that far. They turn back. They distract themselves. They sedate the ache and return to the surface. But not you. If you've come this far, it means you're ready to cross. And in the next part, we'll explore what that crossing truly demands. Because the path of individuation isn't easy. It's not clean. It doesn't promise comfort, but it promises truth. Let's continue. It's getting deeper now. Few people have the courage to begin this journey, and even fewer have the courage to finish it. Because this path, doesn't protect your ego, it destroys it. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming who you really are. But what he didn't sugarcoat is that this means unlearning everything you thought you were. And that hurts more than any external rejection. Because suddenly you realize you are not your achievements. You are not your pain. You are not the version of yourself you created to be loved, to be accepted, to be admired. All of that was survival. But surviving is not living. Individuation is life's invitation to step beyond survival. It's when the unconscious, tired of being ignored, starts flooding the surface with everything you've buried. And what you buried becomes impossible to ignore. Jung wrote, "The persona is a mask of collective convenience. It's not you, it's who you had to become to function. And now, you must peel it off." Yes, it will feel like tearing off your own skin because that mask has been on so long you forgot it wasn't your face, but underneath lies what's real. It's in this process, this brutal shedding, that you begin to become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because you've already gone through the fire. You've met your monsters. You've stood eye to eye with your shame, your neediness, your rage, and said, "I see you, and you no longer control me." That is power. Not the power of dominance, but the power of clarity. You no longer need validation. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to appear strong because you are. And no one can take that away. True emotional armor is not a shell. It's a core. It's a center of consciousness that holds steady even when everything around you breaks. Yes, you'll feel pain, but it won't shatter you. Yes, you'll be wounded, but you won't lose yourself, because you've stopped reacting and started inhabiting your wholeness. You no longer skim the surface of life. You now live in the depths. But that depth comes with a cost: loneliness. Not because you're truly alone, but because very few people can walk this road with you. Most are still trapped in masks, still scared to feel, still clinging to comfort. And when you begin to free yourself, when you start breaking the cycle, you will feel the space widen between you and others. But this distancing is not rejection. Next part teaser. In the next part, we'll explore what this distance really means, why the road to self-knowledge often separates you from the world you once knew, and how that separation isn't the end of connection, but the beginning of authenticity. You're not losing people, you're finding yourself. Let's go deeper. It is maturation. You don't distance yourself because you think you're better. You distance yourself because you no longer fit in the places where you once hid. And this brings us to the final step of the journey: consciousness as a shield. Because it is not strength that protects you. It is clarity, not coldness, not walls, not perfection. Just this, a deep awareness of who you are. This is the final threshold, and if you've come this far, you're ready for it. Let's finish this crossing together. We are almost there. Now that you've made it this far, there's something you need to hear. Clearly, nothing, absolutely nothing, will protect you from suffering if you remain unconscious of what is happening within you. The words will still cut. The rejection will still sting. The losses will still level you until you awaken. But awakening is not some cosmic event. It's not a lightning strike or a mystical trance. It is a choice, a daily, brutal, beautiful choice to look within, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. To stop pointing fingers, to stop blaming your past, your parents, the world, or fate. It's saying, everything I feel is mine, and I will no longer abandon myself to avoid it. Jung said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. You've spent your life resisting. The fear of not being enough, the pain of being rejected, the emptiness of not being seen, the loneliness that felt unbearable. And what did you do with that pain? You hid, you shut down, you tried to control everything, you tried to be perfect. It is about becoming clear. It's not about building armor. It's about expanding your awareness, because when you finally understand your wounds, your patterns, your triggers, the world loses its power to unmake you. Yes, you still feel, but you don't drown. Yes, you still suffer, but you don't lose yourself, and that changes everything. What shields you is not a barrier between you and life. What shields you is the depth at which you now live it. Those who float on the surface are tossed by every wave, but those who dive, they find silence. They find stability. They find power beneath the chaos, and that is where you are going, when you start to live from a place of awareness, integration, and presence. The world may still try to knock you down, but it won't know where to hit you anymore, because there's nothing left to attack. You are no longer fragmented, no longer at war with yourself. You are whole. You are free. If this video stirred something in you, if a part of you awakened, don't let that fire go out. Write it in the comments. I choose awareness. Let this be more than a video. Let this be a movement of people who are done pretending to be strong just to survive, and who are now ready to live with truth. And don't stop here. The next video is part of this same journey. It's essential, because transformation doesn't happen in one step. It happens when you don't stop. I'll see you there.